Hi again, everybody. This video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and here's her story. Hi, Ali. I really appreciate listening to your musings and stories on your channel and was inspired to write in my own story, which, as my best friend often tells me, is causing me a lot of psychological blocks, and I hope this will be in some way cathartic. I've also contributed to your PayPal. I'd rather stay completely anonymous. Thanks. Here's my story. From the moment a registered sense of self, I have felt different from other people. My earliest memories of cognizance were filled with confusion and wonder at the world around me. I knew I had a special brain on some level because I had mostly taught myself to read with the trusty help of the retro speak and spell before I began school. Those earliest memories were filled with frustration at watching my mother, recumbent in her bed and depressed and in a depressed daze while my sister and I tried to entertain ourselves amidst the dust and decay of a downcast house. I remember being thrust into the first day of school and having absolutely no instinct for social interaction. I knew I had to somehow inject myself into the chaotic scene of crayon, sand, and paint, but the entrance in seemed to elude me. My mother often recounted the story with pride of how they told her I did not interact with my peers and seemed to gravitate towards adults. She always insisted it was due to my superior intelligence and that I was bored by my peers and needed the complex conversation of adults. In the absence of another explanation and trusting my mother implicitly, I always accepted her narration of things and my identity even when she was recounting events which she was not party to. She had an intoxicating way of shifting your reality with her thunderous and grandiose monologues. Looking back now, I can see any normal, well-meaning parent would be concerned that their child was not bonding appropriately, but I was meeting my academic expectations. She was less than concerned. We were triangulated from the outset, even though there were nearly 5 years between my sister and I. Our mother repeatedly forced us into identical outfits for family occasions. I remember my sister protesting bitterly. She knew it was wrong, but was too young to realize and be able to articulate that it was a fusing of our identities. My mother always insisted she did this to prevent arguments when in reality the result was the absolute inverse. We were wheeled out as adorned babushka dolls as our mother her 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 treachy people voice or preachy people voice to carousel us around as if we were the royal family, much to the bemusement of onlookers. My sister was a normal social animal and had throngs of friends. She was always able to attract people towards her, although they were always frantic, belligerent accent to her behavior. She didn't always know how to be a good friend, and she certainly didn't know how to behave in school. She had a formidable reputation in our first school that had prevented me being attacked by a group of bullies on more than one occasion. I wouldn't touch her. They say her sister's pretty scary. It was like being related to the legend of William Wallace. Teachers would often stop me in the corridor and ask with disbelief if she was my sister. I could see them trying to work out how we could be cut from the same cloth, as one appears so compliant and well adjusted on the surface. That reinforced my sister's casting role as the scapegoat. I didn't realize it then, but my good, quiet behavior was causing her so much anguish as she was internalizing that she was a bad egg, a narrative often reinforced by my martyr mother. Being more emotionally aware than me, my sister repeatedly called my mother out on her martyrdom on more than one occasion, while my mother questioned why she was doing this to her. When my sister started to date, I could see now that there was an undertone of jealousy and resistance. On one occasion, my mother broke a boyfriend's ring by crushing it with one of her generously proportioned legs. She never explained why she had done that, and my sister was convinced it was jealousy. However, I was too socially confused and needed to be able to trust in my mother's intentions to believe this. There was a complete enmeshment of boundaries. She wanted us to stay in her bed beyond puberty, and we would have to assert that we would want to sleep in our own beds while she pitifully stood on the steps and looked forlorn. There were also no boundaries in the bathroom. It was a testament to our closeness and our relaxed unit. It was only when I returned from college that I realized how disturbing this custom was and ended up dousing her with cold water when she insisted on using the bathroom while I was brushing my teeth. My parents' marriage had broken down when I was two due to alcoholism, and she never had another relationship and constantly told us it was for our benefit, and she did not want a man that would control and manipulate us. She also said it would be akin to competing with us to try to date, which I always found a very strange sentiment. So at 2 years old, she saw her daughters as 2 and 7, she saw her daughters as dating competition. There it is. I remember reading Great Expectations in school and thinking that somehow enmeshed in this Ms. Havisham dynamic, but had no sense of giving my social shortfalls on how to escape it. I remember her telling me when I was 13 that I would be okay because, unlike my sister, I was not needy and did not need other people. As long as I worked hard at school, I would be fine. I remember rolling the idea around in my head, but was not able to conclude that on some level she was sabotaging my life. From 7 years old, I had to behave autonomously in terms of preparing myself for school, getting to school and making my lunch. My mother preferred that I come home alone than ask someone to watch me until she came home from work. Her feelings were always paramount, and yet she was always able to convince us that she was the most benevolent person in our lives and that all other people were out to use us. Now my sister and I are grown up. She, unsurprisingly, is more well-adjusted than me. Given the fact my withdrawal predilections were always encouraged, and I never really feel close to others and have high levels of anxiety. I was so used to hearing about my mother's charmed life back home, which sort of gave way to me really forging my own life in any meaningful way. She had a captive audience who would listen to the same maddening rotation of stories about how fun her youth was, how adored she was by all who met her, how superior she is to all others. I never got a sense of self of how much of a vampire she was on my energy and identity. We both ended up living at home far longer than we should have, and upon leaving felt like these giant clambering babies, bereft of any real skills. When you've heard your whole life to reject the outsiders and people are out to use you, it's like being emancipated from some doomsday cult, and you leave squinting at the light, unsure of who you are. I was so trapped by guilt by my mother that I felt that it was my responsibility to stay in the house when she defaulted on her mortgage. She had stopped working for years and needed my money to support her. My sister left and said she would not be trapped there with mom forever. I eventually left once the house was going into repossession, but was too paralyzed by guilt to leave before this. She allowed herself the freedom to move halfway across the world and start a new life when she was young, but tried to instill us with such fear that we would never have the same abandonment or carefree ability. She is a meek old lady now who infantilizes us and questions whether we've eaten 3 times over a course of a conversation and never fails to call us her babies or tell us she could eat us up. I thought her mistakes the thought of her makes me nauseous now, and I have recently gotten no contact. There's still a part of me that feels guilt and responsibility, but she's someone else's responsibility now. She's living in the room of a family friend who has been for years, and I'm sure I'm on the road to being the only old woman just like her. From Anonymous. The only person who's out to get you is the narcissist. Get you to pay their mortgage, get you to pay attention to them, get you to give them their supply. Don't trust anybody. Don't let anybody in. Everybody's out to use you. Everybody's out to get you. The only person who's out to use you is the narcissist. Because you were set up this way, and because you were told you couldn't do anything, and everybody's going to use you, you're afraid everybody is. So you have no social skills because you weren't socialized properly, and I understand that completely. You have to get out in the world and just talk to people. They're not as bad as you think. They're not as bad as you think. The thing you're going to be susceptible to is other people's sob stories. So when somebody starts laying a sob story on you right away, there's your red flag, because that's what you're going to be. That's what you're going to be vulnerable to. But not everybody's a user. The only person trying to use you in your life is the narcissist, period. And you have nothing to feel guilty about. So thank you for your story. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, or a narcissist you'd like to expose, you know what to do with my PayPal and the email link in the description box. I'll have the video right back to you. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon. Bye.